"Permit me to inform you, Monsieur le Comte," said he, bowing, "that I have received a letter of advice from Thomson and French of Rome." "I am glad to hear it, Monsieur le Baron, for I must claim the privilege of so addressing you as well as your servants. I have acquired the bad habit of calling persons by their style and title from living in a country where barons are still met with, simply because persons are never suddenly elevated to a rank which is possessed only in right of ancestry. But as regards the letter of advice, I am charmed to find it has reached you. That will spare me the troublesome and disagreeable task of coming to you for money myself. You have received a regular letter of advice, therefore my checks will be duly honored, and we shall neither of us have to go out of our way in the transaction." "There is one slight difficulty," said Danglars, "and that consists in my precisely comprehending the letter itself." "Indeed! And for that reason I did myself the honor of calling upon you, in order to beg you would explain some part of it to me." "With much pleasure. Pray, now I am here, let me know what it was that baffled your powers of comprehension." "Why," said Danglars, "in the letter, I believe I have it about me." Here he felt in his breast-pocket. "Yes, here it is. Well, this letter gives Monsieur Count of Monte Cristo unlimited credit on our house." "And what is there that requires explaining in that simple fact, may I ask, Monsieur le Baron?" "Merely the term unlimited, nothing else, certainly." "Is not that word known in France? Perhaps, indeed, it does not belong to the language, for the persons from whom you received your letter of advice are a species of Anglo-Germans, and very probably do not write very choice or accurate French." "Oh, as for the composition of the letter, there is not the smallest error in it. But as regards the competency of the document, I certainly have my doubts." "Is it possible?" asked the Count, assuming an air and tone of the utmost simplicity and candor. "Is it possible that Thomson and French are not looked upon as safe and solvent bankers? Pray tell me what you think, Monsieur le Baron, for I feel uneasy, I can assure you, having some considerable property in their hands." "Thomson and French are bankers of the highest repute," replied Danglars, with an almost mocking smile, "and it was not of their solvency or capability I spoke, but of the word unlimited, which, in financial affairs, is so extremely vague a term, that... In fact," said Monte Cristo, "that its sense is also without limitation." "Aha, precisely what I was about to say," cried Danglars. "Now, what is vague is doubtful, and says the wise man, where there is doubt, there is danger." "Meaning to say," rejoined Monte Cristo, "that however Thomson and French may be inclined to commit acts of imprudence and folly, Monsieur le Baron Danglars is not disposed to follow their example." "How so, Monsieur le Comte?" "Simply thus. The banking house of Thomson and French set no bounds to their engagements, while that of Monsieur Danglars has its limits. Truly he is as wise as the sage whose prudent apothegm he quoted but just now." "Monsieur," replied the banker, drawing himself up with a haughty air, "the amount of capital or the extent and solvency of my engagements have never yet been questioned." "It seems then reserved for me," said Monte Cristo coldly, "to be the first to do so." "And by what right, sir?" "By right of the objections you have raised, and the explanations you have demanded, which certainly imply considerable distrust on your part, either of yourself or me, the former most probably." "Well, sir," resumed Danglars, after a brief silence, "I will endeavor to make myself understood by requesting you to inform me for what sum you propose to draw upon me." "Why, truly," replied Monte Cristo, determined not to lose an inch of the ground he had gained, "my reason for desiring an unlimited credit was precisely because I did not know what money I might expend." The banker now thought it his turn to show off, and make a display of wealth and consequence. Flinging himself back, therefore, in his armchair, he said with an arrogant and purse-proud air, Let me beg of you not to hesitate in naming your wishes. You will then be convinced that the resources of the house Danglars, however limited, are still equal to meeting the largest demands. And were you even to require 1,000,000— I beg your pardon, interposed Monte Cristo. I observed, replied Danglars, with a patronizing and pompous air, that should you be hard pressed, the concern of which I am the head would not scruple to accommodate you to the amount of 1,000,000. 1,000,000? retorted the Count. And what use could you possibly suppose so pitiful a sum would be to me? My dear sir, if a trifle like that could suffice me, I should never have given myself the trouble of opening an account for so contemptible an amount. 1,000,000! Excuse my smiling when you speak of a sum I am in the habit of carrying in my pocket-book or dressing-case. And with these words Monte Cristo took from his pocket a small case containing his visiting cards, and drew forth 2 orders on the treasury for 500,000 francs each, payable at sight to the bearer. A man like Danglars was wholly inaccessible to any gentler method of correction. His upstart arrogance, his ostentatious vulgarity, were only assailable by blows dealt with the force and vigor of the present coup. Its effect on the banker was perfectly stunning, and as though scarcely venturing to credit his senses, he continued gazing from the paper to the Count with a confused and mystified air. "Come, come," said Monte Cristo, "confess honestly that you have not perfect confidence in the responsibility of the house of Thomson and French. There's nothing very strange in your exercising what seems to you a necessary caution. However, foreseeing that such might be the case, I determined, spite of my ignorance in such matters, to be provided with the means of banishing all scruples from your mind, and at the same time leaving you quite at liberty to act as you pleased in the affair. See, here are 2 similar letters that you yourself have received. The one from the house of Arstein and Eccles of Vienna to Baron de Rothschild, and the other drawn from Baring of London to Monsieur Lafitte. Now, sir, you have but to say the word, and I will spare you all the uneasiness and alarm on the subject by presenting my letter of credit at one or other of the establishments I have named." The blow had struck home, and Danglars was entirely vanquished. With a trembling hand he took the 2 letters from Vienna and London from the Count, who held them carelessly between his finger and thumb, as though to him they were mere everyday matters to which he attached but very little interest. Having carefully perused the documents in question, the banker proceeded to ascertain the genuineness of the signatures, and this he did with a scrutiny so severe as might have appeared insulting to the Count, had it not suited his present purpose to mislead the banker in every respect. "Well, sir," said Danglars, rising after he had well convinced himself of the authenticity of the documents he held, and bowing as though in adoration of the man, the thrice happy possessor of as many orders for unlimited credit on the 3 principal banks of Paris. "You have there signatures worth untold wealth. Although your conversation and vouchers put an end to all mistrust in the affair, you must pardon me, Monsieur le Comte, for confessing the most extreme astonishment." "Nay, nay," answered Monte Cristo with the easiest and most gentlemanly air imaginable. "'Tis not for such trifling sums as these to startle or astonish the banking house of Monsieur le Baron Danglars. Then, as all is settled as to forms between us, I will thank you to send a supply of money to me tomorrow." "By all means, Monsieur le Comte. What sum do you want?" "Why," replied Monte Cristo, "since we mutually understand each other, we may as well fix a sum as the probable expenditure the first year. Suppose we say 6 millions to—" "6 millions!" gasped up Danglars. "Ah, certainly. Whatever you please." "Then if I should require more," continued Monte Cristo in a careless and indifferent manner, "why, of course I should draw upon you. But my present intention is not to remain in France more than a year, and during that period I scarcely think I shall exceed the sum I mentioned. However, we shall see." "The money you desire shall be at your house by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Monsieur le Comte," replied Danglars. "How would you like to have it? In gold, silver, or notes?" "Half in gold, and the other half in banknotes, if you please." said the Count, rising from his seat. "I must confess to you, Monsieur le Comte," said Danglars, "that I have hitherto imagined myself acquainted with the degree of fortune possessed by all the rich individuals of Europe, and still wealth such as yours has been wholly unknown to me. May I presume to ask whether you have long possessed it?" "It has been in my family a very long while," returned Monte Cristo. "A sort of treasure expressly forbidden to be touched for a certain period of years, during which the accumulated interest has doubled the capital. The period appointed by the testator for the disposal of these riches occurred only a short time ago, and they have only been employed by me within the last few years. Your ignorance on the subject, therefore, is easily accounted for. However, you will be better informed as to me and my possessions ere long."